When you think of a V8 engine, any V8 engine for that matter, you're probably going to think of something American made. After all, V8 engines are in our SUVs, they're in our sedans, our sports cars, our trucks. Plain and simple, they're everywhere. That being said, you could make a strong argument that America doesn't produce the best V8 engines out there. In a recent video, we took a deep dive into some of the most popular and best Japanese V8 engines, but the German car fans out there felt left out. So it's time that we flip the script on its head and take a look at some of the best German V8 engines ever, including some BMW engines, Mercedes engines, Audi and Volkswagen, Porsche, and more. Starting this list off, we're going to take a look at what I consider to be my personal favorite German V8 engine, and that's the BMW S65. Now keep in mind, this list is in no particular order, so although this engine is first, it definitely does not mean that it is the best. Interestingly enough, the S65 isn't actually based on a regular BMW production engine. Rather, it's derived from the S85 V10 engine used in the M5. But simply shrunken down to a V8. This is way different from previous M3 engines, which were all based on existing BMW engines and then modified for the M3. The S65 shares the same cylinder dimensions as the S85 V10 engine at a 92mm bore and 75.2mm stroke, as well as individual throttle bodies, double vanos, and an insanely high 12.1 compression ratio. The power output of the S65 is pretty impressive at 414 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque, and I know that might not sound like a lot, but considering this is a 4-liter naturally aspirated V8, that's actually quite impressive. For reference, something like Ford's 5.2-liter flat-plane crank Voodoo engine barely breaks 100 horsepower per liter at 526 horsepower, so 414 horsepower out of a 4-liter, it's not bad at all. The main version of the S65 is the S65 B40, which is the 4-liter engine, but BMW also had the S65 B44 for some special edition models, and that engine was a more powerful 4.4-liter. Naturally, there are some downsides to the S65, most notably the connecting rod bearings, which are well known for prematurely wearing out and potentially causing catastrophic engine failure. Regardless though, the S65 is an awesome little 4-liter V8 engine, and not only that, it sounds absolutely incredible. Now, as many of you know, AMG started out as a separate company from Mercedes, and they were just modifying existing Mercedes vehicles and making them faster. But in 1999, Mercedes took a majority stakehold in AMG, and by 2005, they completely owned AMG as a subsidiary company. It was during this time that they started designing, testing, and developing their new flagship engine for their AMG powered cars, which was the Mercedes M156. Interestingly enough, this is a 6.2-liter engine, but Mercedes has always referenced it as a 6.3-liter engine to honor their first ever mass-produced V8 engine, which was the M100. At the core of the M156, we have a very strong aluminum block that featured a closed deck design derived from racing engines, a technique previously used on the SLR McLaren's M155 engine. Bore measures at 102.2mm and stroke at 94.6mm. And more impressively, this was the first ever mass-produced engine to use a wire arc spray coating, also known as nanoslide, on the cylinder walls. This was done to improve durability and reduce friction by as much as 50% at 230 degrees Fahrenheit compared to cast iron cylinder liners, at least according to Mercedes. At its absolute lowest, the M156 produced a very impressive 451 horsepower in the 2008 C63, and at its best, it produced 518 horsepower. Now, an engine that might be a little bit controversial to put on this list, but I think it's worth putting on here, is the Audi or Volkswagen 4.2-liter FSI V8 engine that you can find in the first generation Audi R8. This engine was based on the existing Audi 40-valve V8 engine, but Audi and Volkswagen changed a massive amount of components between the two, including the entire rotating assembly, the cylinders, the valve train, the oiling and cooling systems, and much more. Because this engine was used in such a wide variety of applications, ranging from SUVs to sporty sedans to literal supercars, there are functionally two different versions of this engine, and they're basically just known as the comfort version of the engine and the sports version of the engine. And more impressively, this was their first ever road-going 8-cylinder engine to feature fuel stratified injection, or FSI, which was successfully developed by Audi in their Le Mans winning R8 race car. And more importantly than anything with this engine is that it was the basis of the 5.2-liter V10 FSI engine, which you can still find being used today in the second generation R8 and the Lamborghini Huracan. Next up, we have another BMW V8 engine, and this one was a little bit tough to pick, as BMW has a handful of great V8 engines, and it was between the S62 and the S63. And for this video, we're going to be looking at the S63 because, well, it's significantly more powerful than the S62, and in my mind, that makes it more worthy of being on this list. Because of that name, you might think the S63 is an evolution of the S62, but that's not exactly the case. The S63 as a whole features a few variants, but they're all based on the N63, which also uses twin turbos and can be found in a bunch of different BMW applications. The big difference between this new 4.4-liter V8 and BMW's previous 4.4-liter V8 engines is the fact that this one uses a reverse flow, meaning it has a hot V, which simply means the exhaust manifolds are in the V of the engine rather than the intake being in the V of the engine. As compared to the N63, really the biggest difference with the S63 is the addition of twin scroll turbochargers, which helped improve performance by quite a bit. Overall though, the S63 is an absolute beast of an engine. It uses an 89mm bore with an 88.3mm stroke, bringing total displacement to 4.4 liters. The heads are aluminum, as is the block, to help reduce weight and improve thermal efficiency even more. Total power output ranges between 553 horsepower and 591 horsepower, depending on the specific model and year of the engine that you're looking at. This next engine is something that I wanted to feature on this list, although a lot of people kind of don't know or don't really care about this engine because of the fact that it's in a hypercar. But it's an absolutely insane 4.6-liter V8 engine cranking out nearly 600 horsepower naturally aspirated, and then it's made even more insane with a 250 horsepower hybrid drivetrain. And that's the Porsche MR6 found in the Porsche 918 hypercar. On the surface, it doesn't seem like anything too crazy. The engine is based on the Porsche RS Spyder race car engine, and it's a 3.4-liter V8 with dual overhead cams and 4 valves per cylinder. The MR6 engine dates all the way back to 2005 in the RS Spyder, which was competing in Le Mans racing. But it wasn't until 2013 that we saw the little racing engine modified for use in Porsche's 918 hypercar. A big and very important distinction between the MR6 engine in the RS Spyder and the version found in the 918 is a massive change in displacement from 3.4 liters in the RS Spyder to 4.6 liters in the 918. With that larger displacement, this 4.6-liter engine produces 599 horsepower at 8,700 RPM naturally aspirated, and even more impressively, the engine only weighs 298 pounds as per Porsche. That kind of power per liter is borderline unheard of for any sort of production car. Granted, this was produced in very low numbers, under 1,000 units globally, but for a production engine on a non-racing fuel without any modifications or any tuning from aftermarket companies, that is a absolutely insane power per liter for a naturally aspirated engine. And because it was destined for the 918, this engine is paired with 2 electric motors, adding an additional 282 horsepower, totaling at 875 horsepower and 944 pound-feet of torque, all without any forced induction and with only 4.6 liters of displacement. I know this engine is generally kind of looked over for the simple fact that it's in a hypercar that 99.99% of us will never be able to buy, but that is some flat out impressive engineering and power output. Some honorable mentions I would like to throw out there include the BMW S62, the Mercedes M159, BMW OHV V8, Mercedes M155, Porsche M28, and the Opel Omega V8, which is actually, ironically, an American power plant. Be sure to drop a comment down below. Let me know if you think there are any engines you'd like to add to the list, or if there's anything I missed. While you're down there, be sure to smash the thumbs up button if you guys enjoyed the video, and get subscribed so you don't miss out on future videos. Check us out on Instagram and TikTok. We post a lot on there as well, and I'll see you guys in the next one.